opportunities have opened within the last few months. This will be even greater. All over the United States and all over the world, doors have been opened that have been closed in the past to Negroes. The great challenge that we face is to be ready to enter these doors when they open. Ralph Waldo Emerson said in a lecture back in 1871 that if a man can write a better book or preach a better sermon or make a better mousetrap than his name, even if he builds his house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to his door. This will become increasingly true. That means we're going to have to work hard. We're going to have to burn the midnight oil sometimes. We're going to have to take advantage of new opportunities, and we must set out to do our life's work so well that nobody could do it better.
I'm Gerald C.RIVERS. I'm an actor and an artist, and I guess I am most known for my, what some would call renditions, what others would call channeling of the late, great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Just look at this man's background. When you look down that, but honey, that's the Spirit of the Lord. Anytime you can sound like Dr. King, you somebody.
I grew up in Compton in the 80s when it was ranked among the most violent in terms of its murder rate per capita on the planet. I didn't really enjoy high school and had absolutely no intention of going to college whatsoever. But somebody gave me a scholarship. I was acting already, and I enjoyed the words and the works of the late, great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. They had a talent show in the student auditorium, and I did I Have a Dream from the Martin Luther King speech, and I won. The wisdom of Martin Luther King, it really changed my entire perspective on life.
The other thing we have to do is really realize the American dream. We've got to get rid of the notion once and for all that there are superior and inferior races. We must make it clear all over this land and all over the world that a doctrine of white supremacy or a doctrine of any racial supremacy has no basis in anthropology, has no basis in scientific thinking, and has no basis in morality.
The show that I put together is called What Do You Dream Of? And it is literally allowing me to take this message not only of peace and love and brotherhood, but of visioning. And it has two speeches. One is the I Have a Dream speech, which people are so familiar with, and the other is the American Dream speech, which was the birth of the I Have a Dream speech. But the show really looks at those two speeches, and there's some other kind of characters. I've been talking to people over the years, so there's a reflection from his grandmother, there's a reflection from various people in the community and how they saw King, because we each saw them differently, depending on our particular set of circumstances.
I think it made everyone here think differently, and it really made them want to help the world. I know it made me want to help the world more.
It's made it his life's work to uplift and to inspire millions. That's the amazing thing.
When this man, he came up and he gave his speech about Dr. King, it changed me.
Mason called me today and he said, hey, I heard this guy yesterday. He's going to blow you away. He does an MLK rendition, and I talked him into coming in, and he's going to do it for us. The thing, Steve, you didn't tell me was how much he sounds exactly like him.
Let's just know that today we came to experience something like never before.
What struck me yesterday when I heard it at church was how real it feels, and how it feels like it's happening right now.
Dear Mr. Rivers, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a great man. He was a very important man. He taught me how to be brave.
Dr. King inspires me every day.
What's most important is that he showed us the right way to direct our future.
That helped me learn that if someone hates you, don't hate them back.
I learned that you should never give up, no matter what. Gerald, I can't believe how similar you can make your voice.
I thought it was the original speech with the crowd noise edited out.
I felt as if I was in the crowd watching the actual Martin Luther King Jr. speech.
What I just heard, and I swear to God, to me it was him now.
I can't even breathe right now thinking, if these are the words that really he said, do you know how starved the world is to hear something that refreshing and that real?
You have a talent that teaches old and young people about one of the greatest men in American history.
You taught me a very important lesson, and that lesson was you can do anything if you try.
When I grow up, I want to be just like you. Confident, brave, and strong.
I truly think you gave it all you had to make this performance special. I could see that you were speaking from the heart, and that means you truly care. Your speech made me realize that all people should be treated equally and fairly. Sincerely, Mason Ashida.
This show is designed to push people, to prod them, to create an impetus, to say to them, you have a unique gift, a set of talents, abilities, capacities that can only be brought through you on the face of the earth at this time in human history. I'm challenging you to do yours.
If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word of song, if I can show somebody he's traveling wrong, then my living will not be in vain.
Our brother Gerald Rivers, remember that name? Gerald Rivers.
Greetings, you guys. Welcome to the Music Link, you guys, and happy MLK Day to everybody. We're here with the one and only, you guys. One and only, y'all seen the presentation, the video? So beautiful, so beautiful. You see, even in the video, how he touched so many people. Just him following the words of King and sharing as much as he could about him to other people. And this time, how it touched them. So beautiful. You guys welcome Gerald C. Rivers to the Music Link.
Thank you for having me, Lady D. And happy MLK Day to everyone and all.
Everyone and all. Okay. We saw in the video that you spoke about you being raised in Compton, and let's elaborate on when you first started doing the speech. How old were you again?
I started doing this when I was about 16 or 17 years old. And at that point, I had no idea that 30 plus years later, I would still be doing this work. You know, I grew up in Compton, and I did what most of the kids in Compton were doing at that time, and I was gang banging and rabble rousing and drug dealing. And
you know I'm from Compton too, so I totally understand. Like every people don't understand, you know.
I mean, I have to tell people sometime that Compton is only 5 miles wide and 7 miles long. And for many of us during that time, we never left those confines.
Oh my God.
And so we thought in many ways that was the whole world. So I thought every 16-year-old on the planet must have been gangbanging somewhere, because that's just what young people did.
Do you know, let me say something. I used to go back and visit my mom, and it was a young boy who lived across the street from me. And I had, you know, I had danced on Soul Train, you guys, at one time. So he seen me on there, and he would be like, I'm a star in his eyes, but he's my neighbor. You know, I grew up next to him. He came to me one day so excited. He was dressed up. And I was like, where you going? He told me he was going to Riverside. And he was so excited. I was all like, okay, what's going on out there? He says family was having a party. And then he was like, this is first time leaving Compton. And I was like, what? He was like 17.
Yeah.
He said, all my family is here. I go to school. He said there was no reason to leave. And it had blew my mind how excited he was just to go to Riverside.
And, you know, I think about Riverside and San Bernardino and Lancaster and Palmdale and Rancho Cucamonga. There's a whole lot of there's a lot of those places that black people left, Compton and Watts and South Central,
trying to get away from the violence and there was police brutality in Compton growing up for us. There were times when the police, they may or may not have arrested you, but they may have picked you up and beat the hell out of you and dropped you off someplace else, and sometimes dropped you off in a rival gang neighborhood.
Okay.
Meanwhile,
too much mouth.
people don't remember this, but you know, we talk about the kids that were missing in Atlanta. The back of my house was on Greenleaf. Yep.
You know, my mom was on Willowbrook in Alondra.
Yeah, and people, there were kids who were being mutilated and put in trash bags and dumped on Greenleaf near the nursery back there. And it never got any attention from the media or from the mass media or from really much of anybody. So it really felt like we were there and that nobody cared. And in some ways that meant you could do whatever the hell you wanted to do. It's interesting, when all those people left and went to San Bernardino and Riverside, they left to get away from the drugs and the gangs, but the truth is they took them out there with them. And then the county sheriffs went out there and followed them. All of a sudden the sheriffs were there in the same way that they were here, because Compton used to have its own police department. And when they proved inept to deal with what was going on, the LA County Sheriffs came in and basically took over, and they were no joke for kids. And then the Riverside County Sheriffs and San Bernardino, they went out there and dealt with what was going on out there. So for all those attempts, it's interesting you talk about this kid going to Riverside like that was a big deal, because it seemed like this place that was so far away, but ultimately the same things started happening out there, and because the same people went out there.
True. So,
but yeah, I started when I was 17. I had been kicked out of. First, we were in Compton Unified, and then that did not go well. And so then we were in Linwood Unified, and that did not go well. And then,
Rivers in the building.
we wound up in Gardena because my dad lived in Gardena, and they didn't have a choice.
You know, Gardena was our next city, though.
Yeah, it was right next door.
I used to catch the bus to the mall.
Yep. And to Redondo Beach. Yep.
That was our Hollywood, Redondo Beach, to the movies. That was our. You get on the bus right there and right back. One bus.
Yeah. But there was a group out of Compton. I think they were called P&C Productions, and it was this dude who I think was probably a musician. I'm sure he was very flamboyant. His name was Benny Pritchett, and he was doing a show called Voices of America. And my grandmother knew the neighbor, and she was involved, and she said, maybe you should go down there and find out. So I went and saw the show. It was like a musical review of the history of Black America. So there was Josephine Baker, and of course there was Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass and a host of other great Americans. And so there was a music and dance, and I auditioned because I'd been training, and I was in the show to sing and dance. But some dude, his name is Andrew, we later became friends, he was playing Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Frederick Douglass. And I was like, he don't need to do all of that. And what you can do, what we used to be able to do back then at least, is if you're in a show and somebody else is singing a song or solo or it's got a dance lead, and you think you can do it better than them, you could vie. You could compete for that role. When you were ready, you called the director and the producer. You went back.
Let me show you what I got. Excuse me.
So I did that with this. My grandmother had given me a record album from Martin Luther King's.
Big up, shout out to the Grands, because the Grands, if they feel you, the Grands be on you.
Yep. So I had this album of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, and I only needed a portion of it for the show, maybe a paragraph or so. So I listened to that thing over and over and over, and then I went and did the audition, and I'll never forget, Benny Pritchett came out going, change the program, change the damn program. We got a new Martin Luther King, and that was really the start of it. Like, who knew? You just never know when you're going to have a moment that will change your life and the trajectory of your life. Because at the same time I was going to Sheenway which was theater arts repertoire in LA around Broadway and 101st, I think. And the woman, Dolores Sheen Blunt, was an actress from the 50s. And she was a black woman, and her dad was a doctor, one of the first black doctors in LA. And she started the school to help kids, you know, learn about the business because Hollywood was nice to her for a little while, and then it was like, you know, kind of like her son, Aaron Blunt. He's a DJ now, but he was one of the black kids in the original Bad News Bears. And so that was enough for many of us to say, man, if he's in a feature film,
you could get there.
Yeah, we can get there. And his mom is going to hook us up. So I was studying and, you know, hustling to pay for my classes and whatnot. But once I got
let me ask you a question. Let me stop right there. During this time while you was learning and doing the theater stuff, at what time did it hit you that you was really separating yourself from the whole Compton stigma, the gang, you know, the bad?
It took a while, because the truth, I was on both tracks for a while. And what happened was, once I got in that show, they used to be at they've changed the name of that theater now, but there was a theater, I want to say on Washington, and the show that ran there for the longest time was Norman, Is That You? And I think it was Red Fox who was doing a show over there. But it was a theater there. That theater, I think it's now the Nate Holden space. There's a theater.
The one, yeah, I know you're talking about right
Ultimately,
there.
that was, so when the show was there, it was fine. But then they came to me and said, this show's going on the road. We're going to Chicago, we're going to New York, we're going to Cleveland, we're going to Atlanta, we're going to Miami. And I was like, whoa.
And how old were you?
16.
16, wow.
And so we won't even get into me graduating high school, but miraculously I did that because I did not go to high school. I was hanging out. I was kicking it. We were ditching school so much the truant officer knew me by my first name. He would come and knock on the door.
To be up out of school at times.
At times it was. People don't know what was really going on back then.
Trust me. And I remember kids who were bullied back in the days and for no reason.
Yeah. Crazy. So anyway, I wanted to go on tour, but I was on probation for a few things. And I had a probation officer. My probation officer was saying, you cannot violate your probation, which means you can't leave the county of Los Angeles for any reason, because we want to keep an eye on you. We want to make sure you're not going to bail. And I was like, look, I got this chance to go do this thing. You need to let me go. And so she said, well, we're going to have to go before a judge and ask. And so the number of people that came to my aid, that were deacons in the church, that were Boy Scout leaders, that were from the Y, that were from the gym, that were teachers and people who said, I know he did some stuff, but this is a smart kid. And we have a choice right now. We, as a community, as a society, as a system, have a chance to either let him go and do this thing and he'll come back, or if we don't know what he's going to do here, and maybe out of resentment. But they were like, he's so smart. If we don't let him do that, he's going to do something. He's going to do something with this intelligence, and we might not like what he does with it. And ultimately, they let me go. And so I left, and I was gone, right? I graduated high school, and less than a month later, I was on the road. And I was gone for several months in all these cities and touring and doing this show. And when I came back, my mom was like, how the hell do you go from being on probation, where they're telling you if you violate your probation, you'll have to serve the rest of your sentence in incarceration, to being on tour and in Chicago and New York and Miami and Atlanta? Like, how does that happen? I said, well, you know, I've always wanted to be an actor. You knew that. My family has no understanding of how you pursue that. When I got a chance, I took it, and I told her I played Martin Luther King in the show.
Now, you see, through all those activities right there that happen, does that, like, play a part with all the community stuff that you do? To see how people
because part of and I work with kids now, and I've been working with kids since I was 17, because part of the deal with the judge and the probation officer was like, we need you to do some community service. Because once they saw that I had this potential, they were like, we want you to work with other kids to see to it that more people have a chance. And so I agreed, and I started at the Redeemer Alternative School on Rosecrans, which was a little Catholic school, an elementary school. But that was my assignment, and that's what I did. And I played basketball with the kids and helped them with their homework and artwork and math and whatever was going on. And when my probation ended, I continued that kind of work, and I still do it to this day. So the whole King thing, he was always talking about service. So of course, after I learned the one speech, and I came to my mom's church and we did it there, there was a woman from the Compton Library.
You've been doing it at your mom's church for years. Yeah. So your first, and so what age was you, the first time that you did it at your mom's church?
I was 17.
Wow.
I was 17, and I had just graduated high school, and this is crazy, but I had been given a scholarship to go to college for public speaking. And so I went to LACC and studied speech and communications before I shifted into theater. And I competed in all of these competitions and won state and national public speaking competitions and acting competitions. And here's what I really want to say. When you find something that that's your thing, whether it's music or acting or dancing or hair or cooking or lawyer, whatever it is, I tell people all the time, if you do what you love, then somebody will love what you do. We have enough people out here working at jobs that they hate.
Can you say it one more time?
If you do what you love, somebody will love what you do. Because too many people are working jobs that they hate. And they get up, they go, oh God, it's Monday. And then they go, thank God it's Friday. And then they go, oh God, it's Monday. And then they go, thank God it's Friday. Every day, oh my God, I got to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to this job. Oh, thank God I'm off at 5. I just did not want to live that existence. And I'm living proof that you just hang in there and you stick to it. Too often, we will, and this is all Kingian philosophy, we will plant seeds, and when it doesn't turn out the way that we want it to right away, we leave. So we plant seeds, and then somebody comes along behind us and see this bud coming up, and then all of a sudden they take that idea and run with it, and then we turn around and say, that was my idea. I thought about that same. All of us have had that experience. But you didn't wait patiently enough. King says that the darkest hour is just before dawn, and that you don't have to see the entire staircase. Just take the first step. And then the next step, and then the next step. So, who knew that the library, and then the Boy Scouts, and then another church, and then a school, and then, man, one thing, it's like they told two friends, and so on, and so on.
How old were you, like, when it hit you to how important what you was doing? Like, how important it was for other people? How you connected to people?
At first, I was just doing it, to tell you the truth. I could sound like him, and I watched some video, and I, kind of got into his expressions and his gestures and whatnot.
I was overwhelmed the first time I saw you, and you was like, okay, you went up there, and you took a deep breath, and I was over there like, what? This is how I knew, this is my friend, Rivers. He's been my friend a few years now, and if y'all didn't know, I do his hair.
Yes, Lady B does my hair.
That's my baby. And I went to go see him perform the King's Speech one time, and I was in awe to see him actually. I know, he's an actor too, so we're gonna talk about. He does a lot of other things too, but his speech thing, it was a lot of people there. It was a big place, and I know this was his thing, but to actually see him, he took a deep breath, and his face changed, and his voice changed, and he just went in. I became a fan from that day. I was overwhelmed to, it's just another thing to say when people gifts, when you stand firm in your gift and you believe in what you do and you practice and it's there. I'm like, I seen him I seen him with my own eyes. I know you as Fun Rivers and but when you went to business, it was like, whoa.
You go handle your business. Yeah. And, I was doing it for a while, for years, and it was fun and it was interesting, and I sort of saw the impact that it had on people, but to tell you the truth, I would be invited to a Black History Month program or an MLK celebration, and then I would just creep in the back door and do my thing and leave, because usually I was in such high demand, I would have to go from one gig to the next. So I didn't stick around to see the impact that it was having on people. And then my grandmother, here we go again, Grandma now. She had me come to her church, and she said, "You can't leave. You got to stay."
Okay, you got to. You my grandbaby now. You don't have to.
You got
talk
to
to
stay.
Sister Carol
That's right.
and Lady Lee and I.
The motherboard want to talk to you. They want to hug you, and they want to pray for you, and they want to. So I went and I did the thing, and there was a woman who was on the back row. She was an usher. They used to call them ushers.
Yeah.
She was an usher, and she was probably in her 90s. And she had known me since I was a child and knew that I sort of veered away and deviated and was being like a rambunctious teenager. And when I got done, she came as fast as she could move, running down the center aisle with tears streaming down her face, screaming, "He's not dead, he's not dead." And I had to say, "Oh, ma'am, but he is." And it scared me because I had never really been around long enough to see the impact that it was having on people. Wow. And then I was at LA City College, but I had done a show at Cal State LA. There was a group of brothers who were drummers even then, and they wanted me to come and do it when they were doing their drumming, and I was like, that's cool, because I'm feeling the drumming thing anyway. When I got done there, they were like, "Brother, you're going to be the next Martin Luther King." And I stopped him right then and said, "No, I'm going to be the first Gerald C. Rivers. Like, King was here and did his thing, and this is something that I enjoy." And I stopped doing it for a while. And then because of course, first I learned the "I Have a Dream" speech, but then I had to learn another one and another one and another one. And now I have dozens, 20, 30 plus speeches that I know by heart, committed to memory, and I can do. Which one is more impactful, you think? The one that's called the best is about the street sweeper. By far, it has the greatest impact on me and on people who listen, because it doesn't have to be about race. It doesn't have to be about culture. It's about you doing your thing and offering your gift to the world. King says that I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be, and you can never be what you are to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the way the world is made. He says it is the interrelated structure of reality, and that we're all tied together. And so we're all sort of waiting on each other to do their part. So I don't want to be waiting. This is my part as an actor, as a talent, as the voice of Martin Luther King, then I'm going to do my part, and I'm going to encourage other people to do their part. And just like I don't let nobody else in my hair.
Isn't it so rewarding?
It is.
It's so rewarding. I just bring a tear to my eye too, because I think like that too. Like when you're doing your thing, but then when you bring other people and you help them and everybody's doing their thing, it's so exciting.
That's the way it's the interrelated structure, that we are all interconnected. We're all tied together in what King calls a single garment of destiny. So it was my destiny. Y'all don't know this. I'm going to tell you how I started getting my hair done by Lady B. We were at Agape at an event, and I had gone through a couple people who were doing my hair, and I was not happy with any of them. And I used to do it myself, but I couldn't do that anymore because it would take me too long. It would take me, 6-8 hours to get it twisted and untwisted and like washing and cleaning. And so I saw a car in the parking lot that said Lady B Locks or something like that, and it looked
Fashion Locks.
It looked like she had a Georgia license plate or a Georgia telephone number or something. I was like, maybe that's somebody that I know.
because of the 424, because you was like,
yes.
You was like, what is the 424?
Yeah, what is that? I said, maybe that's somebody. So then I'm working with her in the booth, and I get my phone out. I see her car. I call and say, I want it, and she was like, Rivers. That's my car.
Wait, let me tell y'all. This man, he was in the booth where I was at Agape, and he was standing on the side, and we up like on a hill kind of, and you can see my car parked down. And when he saw the car, he's like, is that Locks? He said, let me call this person. Like his back was turned to me, and he had called the number, and when he was like, hello, I turned around and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, Rivers. And he turned around and he said, what? He was like, I'm calling that number. I said, that's me. And we was laughing so hard. I said, I do lights. He said, you do? I was like, yes. I'm like, that's my car. He was like, wow. Then he turned around and started staring at the car. I was like, that is so crazy.
Yeah. And the fact that you're my homegirl from Compton and that your vibe is right, that's why I don't let nobody else in my hair. But again, that's something that you do, that you enjoy doing, that you do well, that you have practiced, that you have put in work. You know, all the great ones, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Kobe Bryant, they say you got to put in 10,000 hours before you become an expert at something. And like, we don't think about it, but you got people putting 10,000 hours in on the Facebook, on their cell phone. They're not even thinking about it.
But they're not making it work for them.
But they're stacking up those minutes, so they're getting good at looking at their damn telephone. Yep.
They getting it.
But if you know what your passion is and your hustle and you're getting your grind on, you put in a few minutes here and a few minutes there, and then you put in a few hours here and a few hours there and a few days here, a few weeks and a few months. Before you know it, you done put in a few years. And I don't care where you start. If you do something for years, you're going to be better at it.
Because back in the days, it used to take me like 3 or 4 hours. Now it'd be like an hour, just hour and a half. I got that. Okay, so differently from the church, like when did you start getting, like at what age did you start getting the bookings for different events?
Well, as I said, I took a break for a while because I was going to prisons. Okay. And then I was trying to tell these brothers, you know.
Was you doing this on your own, or was it like people still reaching out for you?
It was all kinds of people reaching out to me. People, I had never advertised. People would just hear me someplace and say, I work for Coca-Cola. I work for Neutrogena. I work for JPL. I work for NASA. I know somebody who's a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. I know somebody who's LA County or the mayor, and like, we know that you work with young people, so will you come to the prison? And then it was like I started going into the adult prison. And once you had that clearance, and of course I was clear by then and I wasn't involved in anything, I was going in, and I thought the cats in prison would be like, man, we don't want to hear this Martin Luther King crap. But I went in, and those men were the greatest audiences I've ever had, because we would meditate with these guys. And so there would be people who would go in to volunteer, and they go, you going to close your eyes during the meditation in the prison? And I was like, you know what? If you scared, then maybe this ain't the place for you.
Man,
but if you know that your spirit is right and that your vibe is right, you can close your eyes anywhere. And if you're not being disrespectful to these men, do you know what I mean? You're showing them respect, one, by showing up, and two, by saying, I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to hope and encourage you to be who you are. Then you have their respect. That's the thing about going in the hood. People always think, I'm scared something might happen. But it's like, some of them are like, they're like wolves. They smell blood. They smell your fear, and they smell your disrespect and your disdain for them, and that's what will get you hurt faster than being gullible. Do you know what I mean? That you're like, oh my God, these people, do you know what I mean? That will get you a beat down. But when you say that's a human being, and I see you, and I recognize you, and I respect you, and I see you, I feel you, and we are connected, then things are, anyway. So one time there was this dude, this old white man in the prison who had this long beard. He looked like ZZ Top. Okay. And you're not supposed to touch because they don't want you to pass anything. Okay. But this brother, he was a white boy, but he was my brother in that moment. Okay. He came up to me and gave me a hug, and the guards didn't like drag him off. They let him have a minute, and then he whispered in my ear that he thought that his father may have had something to do with the assassination of Martin Luther King. Wow. And that me standing in there today, standing in for Martin Luther King and him standing in for his father, he wanted to say that he was sorry. And this dude, probably 6'3", 240, long beard, just wept and just stood there and said, man, I'm sorry. And like, I didn't know that this man was so deep. Right. And I know some brothers now that were in prison that are out of prison, and I've seen them since they got out. I've seen them at church. I've seen them other places. and they just thanked me for showing up. So at some point, I had to be in integrity. It's like I can't be rolling up in the prison telling these cats that life can be better on the outside, and me being out of integrity and going home and smoking and drinking and doing. I'm not passing judgment on people who smoke and drink, but for me at that point, I had to say, if I'm going to continue to do this work at this level, then I need to be right.
Listen, and I'm smiling, you guys, because I can say as a friend, I've watched him where when he did the transformation of certain things, I was like, so what's going on with you? Every time he was doing something, I would notice the change. I'm like, you're glowing, you're slimming up, what's going on? And he would be like, he stopped smoking, he changed his eating habits, and I'm like, I don't know, so I must see it.
Yeah.
Because I would say, what's going on, Rivers?
Because I wasn't putting it on blast. I wasn't putting it on front. Oh, by the way, I don't smoke marijuana anymore. Do you know? Because I did growing up. But I reached a point where it was like, you know what? I'm making a choice right now not to have any mood or mind-altering substances and to be present. Because the truth is, I can't speak for other people, but for me, yes, I liked it, but I was hurting. And it was a pain reliever for me. And so I was treating the pain rather than treating the illness or the injury or what had happened inside of me or back when I was a kid. And once I treated that, then I didn't need the pain relief anymore. Then again, people have their different motivations, and I don't have judgment because I smoked for years, and I liked it. I had a good time. But I reached a point where I needed to be in integrity. I needed to be in alignment. I couldn't be going out.
Because for a lot of people, doing those things stop them from still standing in their own life. Yeah. They still want to have that and get it together, but those are the things that you got to really shut down. Sometime if it went wrong for them, and they put too much time into that, then getting their life together.
Here's one thing that I know to be true. When I stopped smoking and when I stopped drinking, I started making more money. Now, here's the other thing that's true. I didn't have any more contacts. I didn't have any more talent.
And you started seeing more money, too, because you weren't spending it.
I didn't have any more resources. Do you know what I mean? But what would happen is there were times when I'd be stoned and I'm supposed to return a phone call, and I'm like, I'll get back to that. Now, when them people call, I got a whole team, and if they don't get a call back, they get a call back from me saying, how can I be of service? And I literally, I was poor, and I do all right now. I'm grateful. I want even more, but I'm not hurting right now, and I'm grateful for it because I'm present with my gift and my talent and my business, because it's not called show, it's called show business, and you've got to handle your business.
Yeah, that's true, together.
So I don't know, probably in my 30s, I was like, I need to be right.
Yeah.
I need to get
Did
it
you know
together.
that this was going to be your career at that same time, or you was like, let me put my all into this?
You know what? I thought I was going to be an actor. I always wanted to be an actor. And now, and we can explore this more later too, but I got into voiceover.
Yeah, that's all.
And I didn't even know that you could make a living in voiceover. And I thought by now I'd be, a movie star, a TV star, and it didn't happen that way. I did a lot of live theater and on-stage work here in New York and Chicago and Atlanta.
And what's one of the places in Topanga Canyon, right?
Yeah, it's called the Will Gear Theatricum Botanicum. And Will Gear used to be grandpa in the Waltons, and his family started a classical theater doing Shakespeare in Topanga Canyon. And
Didn't you do that for a long time?
I've been there for 23 years.
Wow.
So I go out, we weren't out there last summer, but I go out there every summer and put in work.
They had a show there, and I was like, this is the place where Rivers was performing. Because they had other things there, but I was like, this is that place.
That's that place. So that's family now, and they have room for me. And when I first got there, and I got in, and I auditioned, and I looked at like a bunch of cast from years gone by, I didn't see any black people. And I told the artistic director, it was like, it don't look like y'all have a whole lot of black people here. And I just come back from Atlanta, and I went to school at Morehouse, and I was like, I'm looking for the black theater.
Right.
And she was like, there really is no prominent black theater in LA. And I was like, how is that? In Atlanta, in Chicago, New York, everybody has a black theater somewhere. And, you know, not at the exclusion of other folks, but at the pride. Even Oakland and Berkeley, they have a black rep.
Wow.
We don't have one. So she said, maybe you could make this your black theater. I was like, but it's not black. And she was like, but you are. And if you want to make your home here, you can do that. And I made my home there. And, you know, I'm doing Shakespeare. Last time I was there, I played the lead in Moby Dick. I'm playing Captain Ahab.
That's right.
You know, and I've gotten opportunities there and connections for film and television that I would not have gotten otherwise. So everything that I do, I make sure I'm putting in work. If I'm going to be an actor on stage, I'm going to be stealing scenes from people.
Okay.
They're going to have to tell me, Gerald, this scene is not about you. And I was like, well, then they need to step up their game because I'm going to show up fully for everything that I do. I'll tell you this briefly. I was in a Shakespeare play called The Merry Wives of Windsor. And I played a small role of a dude named Bardolph, and I'm the drunk. And so all I want to do is get drunk. And so I get a job at the tavern, and so that I can have all the free drinks that I want. Now, they have me on stage while another scene is going on, and I decide I'm going to pour myself several drinks. So I'm quiet. I ain't doing nothing. I'm pouring one drink. Oh, that looks real slow. That looks good. Then I'm pouring myself another drink. Oh, my God. I'm pouring then I'm going to drink one. Oh, I need to fill this one up. So I remained active until they said, people are not even watching the scene right now. But I'm doing my thing.
Okay, but if they wanted to know, you stay in character.
I do. Okay. And this Martin Luther King thing is a character with character like no other character I have ever known. And yes, I'm an actor and a speaker, but that's not just acting. I know that something happens to me because I've been listening to these words, and then I was like, damn, he got me. Now I'm going into prisons, and I'm going into hospitals, and I'm visiting homeless shelters, and I'm going into rehab centers, and sometimes not even about doing the Martin Luther King, but just to go and be of service, just to go and see about somebody who's got less than I do. And again, we don't have to put it all on blast. I don't need to announce to everybody what I'm doing. I just quietly go about my business. You know, every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, I don't celebrate with my family. I'm out there being of service, feeding the homeless, doing something.
You feed the homeless every year. I know that too. One more thing. What was I going to ask you? About the other thing you got for the comic thing. What was it? You got a voiceover for. You remember you went to the exhibit or expo. They had that thing. What was that?
Comic-Con. And
that's
there
big
was
time. Big time.
Well, I have several video game characters, and they're getting older. But Street Fighter, World of Warcraft.
Okay, take your time now, share. This is a big thing now, brothers. I know you got 1 and 2 and 3. Okay. People who are acting are trying to do different things, voiceovers, all that. This is like your dreams could surpass theirs, but that's a dream for some people, and you got a couple of them in there. And the Comic-Con, you have
the first one is a character named M. Bison for the video game called Street Fighter, and that game's been around since we were kids. And at first they didn't have the people talking because most of these games come from Japan, and then they get translated into English. So when they decided to translate Street Fighter into English, I got approached and I got a chance to audition, and I didn't know that there was going to be Street Fighter 3 and 4 and 5 and 7 and Deluxe and Street Fighter versus Capcom and Street Fighter versus Tekken and Street Fighter versus Marvel. So this character, M. Bison, who used to be like what they call a big boss. After you defeat all the other fights in the game, then you get to somebody like M. Bison, and now it's gone even beyond that. But when Disney decided to do the movie Wreck-It Ralph, which was about video game characters, they wanted M. Bison in the movie. And so my agent, they were going back and forth, and I was not happy with Disney because they had me audition for some other things and didn't offer me a role, and we sort of went back and forth, and they had me doing callbacks, and finally when they called about this one, I was like, I'm not doing another callback for those people. My
Yeah,
agent
you
was like,
sure.
this is not a callback. They're calling to offer you a job. And I was like, okay, then I'll do that. And so it you know, it was a big film, and the role wound up being really small in the film, but all over LA, there were these billboards with my character's picture on them. He looks like a German dictator. He wears a red suit, and sometimes he has an eye patch and a little hat that's tilted to the side.
And he's
boots,
the voice, you guys. He's
and
the voice.
most people don't know that that's a brother from Compton voicing the character of M. Bison in all those Street Fighter series. The ones in the arcades, that's my voice too.
That's him. Gerald C. Rivers, you guys.
We did Mortal Kombat, and there's only one black character in Mortal Kombat, but in Mortal Kombat 9, I think it is, his name is Jax, or Jackson Briggs. He's got bionic arms. They allowed me to do that. And then World of Warcraft, when that was big, there was a character named Drakuru, and he was sort of Jamaican. He kind of had dreads a little bit, and they wanted, you know, a little island flair, you know? And so we tossed that one in there too. And then there's probably a dozen more video games that, and then there's something called anime, and there was a show called Beck that was an anime series that people were watching, and they had a character that was a rapper, Tyrone. And so then I got to roll in there and
be a
some
little
Tyrone. Yeah.
How was that to be able to, you know, do voiceovers? Like, just your voice and talking and reading things and get paid, like...
I didn't know that you could make a living doing that. And so for anybody in Florida, I have a campaign called tobaccofreeflorida.com. And so I've been doing that for 8 to 10 years. And you literally hear me saying, quit smoking today, tobaccofreeflorida.com. And so it's on the radio, it's on the TV, it's on the internet. That's all me. I got a couple of McDonald's commercials. I got some Bacardi commercials.
Voiceover work, you guys.
Voiceover. You can get paid doing voiceover, but just like everything else, you got to put in work. You got to work on your craft. And by now,
so did you start teaching? Or
I do some coaching. So I have voiceover coaching clients, and many of my clients are booking jobs. A few of them are not, and I don't take responsibility one way or the other. If they put in work, I can help them. And for some of them,
make sure let's advertise. Let's let the people know. So
you can go to, I have a website at GeraldCRiversVO.com. That's GeraldCRiversVO.com. And there's information on there about coaching with Gerald Rivers.
He's coaching for these. You see these gigs he got, getting paid big time, you guys. Voiceover work. And it's like 5 or 6 things. He got national just voice everywhere. And checks just sneaking in his bank account when he ain't looking. Voiceover work.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm always looking at that bank account, so the checks don't sneak in. I'll be like, "Hello, welcome, you too. Come on, y'all better come on in. Y'all better come on in." And then, you know, there's been some television work, and there's been a couple of commercials, and we did a Geico commercial a few years ago with these camels, and then there's one out now for Xbox, for PC. And now, you know, we just got some money from Honda to help these kids
you guys
out.
Saw that commercial. It was beautiful.
We'll put that up on your site so folks can see that too.
I'll reshare that.
It's the helpful Honda people and their random acts of helpfulness.
Okay,
it ain't no joke.
Before you go into about them drums, when did you start this drum situation with the kids now? Let's share that.
Yeah, we got a whole lot going on because we gotta be multi-dimensional. So I'm an actor. I work on stage. I work in film and television. I work in commercials. I'm a voiceover artist, and I work in commercials. There's an educational website called ABC Mouse, and I'm the voice of Murphy the Math Guy and several other characters, and I read books on the ABC Mouse deal. And then there's a campaign for No Yolks Noodles, and I'm the voice of No Yolks Noodles on your Pandora.
Okay,
and then
you get this insured.
I got a cartoon that was running on Disney. It's still running, but they're not taping a whole lot of new stuff, called The Lion Guard, and it was the sequel to The Lion King.
Okay.
And so Simba has grown up, and Simba's now the king, and now he's got a son named Kion, and Kion has a group of other animals that are the new Lion Guard. And I play Pua, who used to be the king of the crocodiles, but I got deposed and beat up. And now I serve as counsel to the king and then there's in addition to Wreck-It Ralph, I have some voices in the Doctor Strange movie. So I've been getting there's the acting, there's the theater, there's the film and television, there's the voiceover, there's the commercials, the video games, the cartoons, the commercials, the animated series, and then there's the drumming.
The drumming.
So growing up in Compton, we used to go to Compton College and run that track. And they used to have a golf course at Compton College, and I golf now, but I knew nothing about golf then. But one day I was there and I heard some people in this room, and they had been listening to reggae, and then they were drumming and so I just remember sticking my head in there, and the whole room was like, the whole room
and the vibe,
and they were playing djembes, and I didn't even know what djembes were. Fast forward, I was in Atlanta for a while. I went to school at Morehouse, and then after I left Morehouse, I went to work for a place called the Academy Theater, and I was an artistic director there. Okay. So I was directing shows and touring, mostly shows for kids about issues that were important to young people. Anyway, I understood this non-traditional approach to acting, and so I was teaching it. And so I went to a conference in Black Mountain, South Carolina, and I was there to teach acting, but they had a big drum circle, and I would go and just stand at this drum circle and just be all up in the vibe. And so there was this older black woman who had this beautiful large djembe, almost like a mother drum, and she just saw me standing there like nodding, and she said, "You want to play, don't you?"
Wow.
And I was like, "I've never played before." And she was like, "It's okay. You can sit down at my drum and get your play on with all these other people who are drumming. Just listen and then kind of get in where you fit in." Man, I sat down, and it was 4 hours later. And she came back, and I looked down, and my hands were bleeding. I kept playing, and I didn't have any cuts, but I was bleeding from the pores. I just kept playing, and I had gotten blood on the white fur on her drum, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "I'm so." I was in it, and I told her, I said, "I am so sorry." She said, "That's all right." She was like, "Because you have just blessed my drum, and my drum has just blessed you, and you will forever be a drummer." And I've been playing ever since. So a few weeks later, we hosted West African dance ballet at Georgia Tech with the theater, and I went, and they had drums in the lobby for sale, and that's where I bought my first drum.
You was getting it.
I was in. I taught my daughter to play, my kids play, and then when I came back to LA and got involved with an organization called Colors United out of Watts, where they were helping kids from rival gangs get into the arts. They had a drumming program, so I would sit in there and drum with them. And then later, I just would go and want to play with people. And I went to Venice Beach and some of these places, them people ain't listening. They just banging. They just making noise.
But some of them just doing the stress. But it's one thing to play like that, because I've done that, just jump and just hit. But when you get the pattern and to connect really with the rhythm, it's a whole different. It's a different.
So then I would go to drum circles and nobody knew how to play, and people would invite me to drum circles, and I'd show up and I'd be the only one who could play, and they were like, "Why don't you teach us something?" And I was like, "I don't teach us, I don't just play." And so at one point I said, "I'm not going to any more drum circles because people don't know how to play." And somebody said to me profoundly, "If you really want people to know how to play, you might have to teach them." And so I took one student who was Samantha from Australia. And she can play. And taught. She was my first sort of drumming student. And when I saw that, here is this white woman from Australia who could learn to play djembe, and then I said, anybody with a heartbeat can learn to play if they listen. And then I hooked up with Rosie.
Rosie,
and those kids at the
Bless up
Soul
yourself,
Adventures. And she said,
She's an OG, okay?
will you come to the garden and teach those kids some drumming to the youth? And
I
so,
forgot you guys did used to
and
roll
they
up.
were the first, what we call peace players. They were in Rosie's garden, and then we had a show, and we did it someplace, and then I started holding big drum circles in my yard.
Shout out to Rosie too, because she's a former Queendom Come member, the second female reggae band in Los Angeles. One of our members, Rosie, pick up yourself, playing the horn. One of the horn players.
Saxophone.
The saxophone player. Pick up yourself, girl.
She used to remind me of.
She could play too.
I know. She reminded me of the little girl on The Simpsons who you didn't expect that from, and she would pull out her saxophone.
And she could play reggae. Man, she could play everything.
Yeah.
I done seen her on stage with some famous artists too, and just been proud. Like, wow. You know, as far as her being a woman alone, but to know the thing, you know what I'm saying? Just not her being a girl, but she knows the stuff and can hang with the boys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And bless up all the things that you're doing with the kids too for a long time. Yeah.
Soul Adventures.
Mm-hmm. Soul Adventures.
So I started having drum circles at my house and inviting other drummers who I knew could play.
Right.
And then I used to live in La Cañada, Flint Ridge.
Okay, yeah.
And I had this big property. I was on 2.5 acres. So I could put 150 drummers in my yard.
And he's not exaggerating.
I'm not exaggerating.
His backyard was...
And have room for people to park their cars in the yard and have 150 people out there in the yard drumming. And it was right next to a creek. It was powerful.
Right next to the creek, you guys. Beautiful creek. You can go out there and take a little walk. I went over there. Actually, I did a music video over there too, you guys. I had house sit for him, watch his dog one time, and I was over there doing music videos. Sure did.
So somebody came to a drum circle, and they worked at a school, and they said that the guy who teaches drumming at their school was on tour and asked if I could go and fill in for 2 weeks. And so I went, and they were preparing for a concert, and they were playing circus drums and like little kid preschool, and I was like, this will never do. And so I started bringing in djembes, and then I didn't have enough, so I brought all the ones that I had, and then I borrowed some from Rosie.
Hold that up
and
right there.
Mara.
Let them see it. This is the OG, you guys.
Spot out.
Yeah, there we go.
The OG goat skin, the OG handmade, no machining involved.
Right.
It was hands that put that drum together. So I borrowed drums from Rosie and taught at the Ocean Charter School for 2 weeks. But I said, scrap that circus drum. We're going to learn to play djembes. And I taught them a traditional West African rhythm. And then they played at the concert. And the principal was like, I've never seen anything like that. Wow. And then she was like, they have learned more from you in 2 weeks than they learned from the other guy in 2 years. Do you want his job? I said, brother, I don't want to take his job. And then she was like, well, I don't know if he's really into it. Right. And I said, well, you need to talk to him first. Right. So when he came back and they talked to him, he was like, oh, thank you. Because I really wasn't. No, I didn't really want to do that. I was just helping you guys out. And now I've been at that school for 10 years.
Yeah, man.
And then from that school, we taught some kids to play, and the advanced drummers developed a performance troupe called the Peace Players.
Hey, let me tell you something about these kids that he was teaching. I went in one day with a friend of mine, actually, that substitute for him. He couldn't make it. And without him even being there, these kids, one of the other kids was messing up. They was like, They was checking each other to get the thing right. And I was like, whoa. And we're talking about a mixed crowd of kids, okay?
Middle school.
And they was
6th, 7th, and 8th graders that are Asian, Latino, Caucasian, and African American, and multiracial. Because we use the drum, but we don't just teach music. We teach culture, we teach respect, we teach discipline, we teach self-discipline. We talk about that a lot in the program.
But they was doing it with each other. Whoever was out there was making sure they said
because we have a tribe, we have a circle, we have a village that requires respect and allows everybody to be heard. And at the same time, there's a pecking order. This guy's an elder in this village. Okay. He might be 8th grade, but you're 6th grade. Right. So you got to offer him some respect because he's been playing drums for 2 years. You've been playing drums for 3 days. So suck it up.
Yeah, no, they didn't even. The one guy had told the little boy something. Nobody said nothing. And then he kept doing it. Then the other one said, "Did you hear what he said?" And I was like, "Okay." They had checked themselves, and then they went back to the drumming.
Yep. I mean, they can play. They go in. I mean, they're like, and now we have them ranging from like 3rd grade, and some of them have graduated high school. Some of them have graduated college, and they still come back. They still come back and play with me.
They can go and play that. They see drum circles. They get situations. They could jump in it because they know what they're doing.
So once those kids got good, we went to another school, and we performed at the other school, at the Odyssey Charter School in Altadena. And I let the kids answer questions after a Black History Month program. And the principal said, "I got to have this program at my school." She said, "They can play. I mean, they can play incredibly, but the fact that they can answer questions maturely, you know, and not be giggly and silly and like with dignity and discipline and respect."
Does that come with the drum? Does that come with it? Give me that thing. It does.
Yeah. And so then, of course, we wound up partnering up with Mara and the African Village, which I know you know something about.
The African Village. Big up the African Village. But y'all see how this is the music link. If you didn't know where the name the African Village came from, then now you know. The African Village was named by yours truly, Lady B. So that's why the music link is in here, because the is all mine.
Yeah, so we get all the drums directly from Senegal. They're all handmade, and they're all blessed.
And actually, that first shipment that came, honey, it came under me.
Yeah, I know about. I've seen several of those shipments come in here.
Okay,
and truckloads and boatloads and containers full
with my name on it.
Yeah, but we literally love the fact that we can support the village in Senegal where they're making those drums. And I know Mara's in Vegas now with his little Africa Love store, and they're still moving stuff.
But when it started, that did a lot because at that time they wasn't getting that kind of work, and for real, it's so true.
I mean, we provided drums for several different schools in their entirety that those schools still own now. I would go to them and say, if you want the program, you got to buy 25 brand new drums from Africa, because I don't want these little crappy drums. I don't want something that's inauthentic. I want something from the motherland that the kids can put their hands on, that folks in Africa put their hands on.
And what those shipments did was give work to all those people that's in the villages that's over there that have been doing some stuff, but they have things sitting there. Now they had a job for it, however long it took to make those drums. But I know of the 2 shipments back then that I know that when I talked to Mark before, when he was talking about how excited they was, because the more orders was coming in, the more work he had for the people to make money to help their family. So that's what it did.
So it's
trickled
a
down.
win-win-win.
Yeah, man.
It's like each one is giving one and teaching one and touching one. That's how we do.
And it was all sizes, you know. We got the small ones, the bigger ones. It was all sizes of drums,
So the drums is just another part of this whole thing. So my company is called Message Media Group. And so we provide messages in all kinds of forms, but they're all positive Message Media Group, and it's an LLC. And that's how I operate most of the stuff that I do. A lot of the voiceover and the coaching and the drumming and the teaching and the speaking. All of that stuff goes through.
Because people started booking your kids to come perform different places.
Oh, the kids were performing all over the place. At times, I could hardly keep up with them. The piece players were gigging. And I was like, wait a minute, I got a little conflict. I got some work to do, too.
I'm scheduled over there.
But they were in Orange County. They were in Calabasas. They were in Camarillo. Yeah, big shout out to the police. I think they have a page somewhere on Instagram.
Okay, the Peace Players. You guys look them up. And the teacher here, GERALD C.RIVERS, you guys.
And they developed a little credo that just said, I am a peace player, that I must promote peace, love, and positivity.
I see the shirts that they had before. That's good. You know, see how you inspire people to get them on their journey of being who they are.
But but it's going back to King, because it's
Day. King Day.
He inspires me to inspire other people.
All right.
And to do my job so that they can do their job. And it's interesting today, you know, usually on MLK Day, every channel you can see all this programming, and the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Washington, D.C. But now between COVID and the inauguration and Donald Trump, all they're talking about is COVID and Donald Trump.
There's not even showing nothing that even look forward to King Day coming.
Right.
No advertising.
Right, and everybody's got to be virtual. And I've been virtual all weekend. And I've been doing gig after gig after gig virtually, kind of like this one. I was at Agape yesterday, and then I was doing something for the Emperor's College, which is acupuncture school that is nationwide. They're based out of Santa Monica, but they have students all over the country. And so it was a healing for the healers, if you will.
That's so beautiful that even in this time, you're still able to do, share with people.
Yeah. I was
every time around this year, you book like how many gigs in this time?
More than I can do, usually multiple in one day.
And
now we just have to do them virtually.
It stretches out to how far? March?
It used to stretch out until April 4th, because what a lot of people don't know is April 4th is the day that King dies. And from January 29th until April 4 is what they call the season for nonviolence. So the end of January is when Gandhi died, and the beginning of April is when King died, and it's 64 days in between with Cesar Chavez's birthday right in the middle of that. So there would be activities all over the country and all over the world for the season for nonviolence.
Let's share, I don't mean to cut you again, let's share about when the King family sent for you. Oh my God.
We've done a couple of things with them, but the first time it was a fashion show, and I want to say Iman and some other folks were there, and I had been at Morehouse and I had been doing this work and doing these shows, and they said there's a speech that most people haven't heard that we want you to be backstage doing the voice of Dr. King, reading this stuff about him being up in the middle of the night, like scared, because we like to think of King as like this, like he was brave and dynamic and nothing bothered him. But the truth is, there were moments, and he was human. That's the other thing I want to say. King was not a perfect man. So what that really should say to us is you don't have to be perfect to do something great. And you might have to forgive yourself for something that you did so you can stop withholding your gifts, thinking that you don't deserve them or you shouldn't have that. It's time to step up and step into your greatness. That's what King was really about. But yeah, that was an honor for me, and I've met the family, and I've met and just maybe 2 years ago, there was an event for the women of SCLC. And for those who don't know, SCLC, or the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, is the only organization that King actually started and founded and was the president of. He was involved with the NAACP and SNCC and CORE, but SCLC is his baby, and it's still in Atlanta right now. And the people who were around him, Ralph Abernathy, Joseph Laurie, those were the people who took over that organization when he died. And so most recently, they were honoring the women, the wives, and the children of SCLC. And I was invited there to speak where Bernice, his youngest daughter, was the keynote speaker. And I was invited there to deliver on April 4th the speech that he delivered the night before he died.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember when you was telling me about it,
And I was like, I was stoked. And it was because I went to Morehouse, and my Morehouse brother was putting a program together, and he was just like, you got to have this dude. You got to have this dude. Like, why are we even talking about somebody else?
Share with us real quick on your way back from that particular event. Like, what was going through your mind? Like, out of all the time you've done it, like, what was that particular event? How was it different for you?
I'm going to tell you, it was different because we explored what took place in Memphis, Tennessee before he died. And so you got to remember that King didn't get assassinated because he was fighting for civil rights or voting rights. When King decided two things: one, we need to end all poverty, and two, we need to end all war, and three, those two things are related. Like he says, maybe we spent far too much of our money establishing military bases around the world rather than bases of genuine concern and understanding. And so he was on the Poor People's Campaign. He was trying to help people say, we don't have to have poor people, and we don't have to have war, and we have enough money, we have enough jobs, we have enough cars, we have enough homes, we have enough clothes, we have enough hopes, and we have enough dreams to take care of the entire world over and again. And it's like, what are we doing? Something is not right. That we might have to redistribute some of this wealth so that you don't have some people making $100 million a year while other people are sleeping on the sidewalk. And he was like, he literally would have bouts of depression. He would say, how can one avoid being depressed when you see with your own eyes millions of people sleeping on the sidewalk at night? You have to step over people to go into the 7-Eleven, and we like to act like we don't see them, and we turn our head, and I don't do that anymore. I look those people in the eye, and I just let them know you too are a child of the Most High. And you don't have to say anything. You don't have to go give them a speech, but you can look at them and say, I see you, I feel you, I recognize you. And if you're going to give them $1 or $5 or $10 or buy them whatever, I don't care what they do with it. Somebody said, don't give him that. They're just going to buy drugs and alcohol. And why don't you ask him what he's doing out there? And I just think about the fact that if I was homeless and if I was on the street and I was at the place in my life where I was standing on the side of the freeway or standing outside of a liquor store begging for change, I don't want to have to explain to somebody how I got there. I don't have to explain to somebody what I'm going to do with it.
You know,
and if you don't want to give them some money, give them some socks. These homeless people need some socks because in the wintertime, those socks get wet from the rain and the snow, and they will cause infection. In the summertime, they get sweaty. So you can go to the swap meet and buy a big bag of socks and getting people some socks if you don't want to give them some
that
food.
is very important because what's it gonna do?
Yeah.
But just wear the socks. They can do that. Use them at any time. They will not get rid of socks because they have to stand up on their feet.
They need some socks, man. Give them some socks. You can do something. And so my credo this year, and it was last year too, because we ended all of that speaking engagements because of the virus. But I've been telling people, you don't have to do everything, but you have to do something. And you don't have to be charismatic, but you do have to care. And you don't even have to be brave. You just have to be willing.
Yes.
Because King was not the most brave one. And I'm going to have to get out of here soon because I got another gig. But maybe what we'll do is this speech from King that I did for the family at that fashion show all those years ago that most people don't know anything about. And it just makes him accessible. It makes him a man. It makes him human when he's like doubting and fearing. And so we all have doubts. We all have fears. We all have worries. We all have concerns. But we can work through that and we can be better than we were before.
Yes. You guys, this is Lady B. We here on the Music Link with the one and only Gerald C.RIVERS. With today, our salute to the one and only Martin Luther King Jr. What we're going to do is, you want to go ahead and, are you good with sitting there?
It'd be better if I was standing. Can we work that out?
Okay, we're going to go ahead and, give me a minute, you guys. Let me set this up real quick. Do we need to stand?
I can use this if you want. Do I need this? I'm going to be loud.
No, you don't need it.
That's fine. We don't need that.
I was just going to quickly stand.
Okay. So again, this is, people like to think of King as brave, but early on in his career, you know, he had moments where he was scared, but that didn't stop him from doing what he needed to do. And so what I'm saying to all of y'all is there are moments when you have fear, but that doesn't mean it's to prevent you from doing what it is you were put on the planet to do. So here are some of the words of the late, great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I'd like to ask people to open your hearts and your minds and remember that today is a day on and not a day off. You can be of service to somebody. All right, listen up.
Hold on, let me get your face straight.
One day, after finishing school, I was called to a little church down in Montgomery, Alabama. Things were going well there. It was a marvelous experience. But I never will forget one day. About a year later, a lady by the name of Rosa Parks decided that she wasn't going to take it any longer. She stayed in a bus seat. You may not remember because it was way back now, several years ago, but it was the beginning of a movement where 50,000 black men and women refused absolutely to ride the city buses, and we walked together for 381 days. And then they asked me to be the spokesperson and the president of the new organization, the Montgomery Improvement Association, which came into being to lead the boycott. And I couldn't say no. And then we started our struggle together. And things were going well for the first few days, but then about 10 or 15 days later, when the white folks in Montgomery knew that we meant business, and they started doing some nasty things. They started making nasty telephone calls, and it got to the point where some days more than 40 telephone calls would come in, threatening my life, the life of my family, the life of my children. But I took it for a while in a strong manner, but I never will forget one night. It was around midnight, and you know you can have some strange experiences at midnight. I had just come in and wanted to get into bed so I could get up the next morning to try to keep things going. My wife was over there asleep, and I crawled into bed, and immediately the telephone started ringing. I picked it up. On the other end, it was an ugly voice. And that voice said to me in substance, "Nigger, we're tired of you and your mess now. If you aren't out of this town in 3 days, we're going to blow your brains out and blow up your house." I'd heard these things before, but for some reason it got to me that night. I tried to roll over and go to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I was frustrated, bewildered. I got up and went to the kitchen and started warming some coffee, thinking that coffee would give me a little relief. And I thought about many things. I thought about the theology and the philosophy that I just studied at the university. The answer didn't quite come there. I thought about the fact that my beautiful little girl could be taken away from me at any minute. And it got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. I was weak. And I remember I could hear an inner voice saying, "Martin Luther King, you can't call on Daddy now. He's up there in Atlanta, 175 miles away. You can't even call on Mama now. You gotta call on that person that your daddy used to tell you about. That power that can make a way out of no way." And I sat over that cup of coffee and I prayed a prayer, and I prayed out loud that night. I said, "Lord, I'm down here trying to do what's right. I think I'm right. I think the cause that we represent is right. But I must confess that I'm weak now. I'm faltering. I'm losing my courage." Seems at that moment, I could hear an inner voice saying, "Martin Luther, stand up for justice. Stand up for righteousness. Stand up for peace. Stand up for love. And lo, I will be with you even until the end of the world." I tell you, I seen the lightning flash, and I heard the thunder roll. I felt sin breakers dashing, trying to conquer my soul, but I heard the voice of Jesus say, "Still to fight on." He promised never to leave me alone. No, never alone. He promised never to leave me alone. You know, sometimes I feel discouraged. And I don't mind telling you this morning that sometimes I feel discouraged. I felt discouraged in Chicago. As we move through Georgia and South Carolina and Alabama, I feel discouraged sometimes. Living every day under the threat of death, I feel discouraged sometimes. Living every day under extensive criticism, even from Negroes, I feel discouraged sometimes. And feel my works in vain. But then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There's a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. God bless you.
Woo. Y'all see that? Rivers, y'all. Giving your girl chills over here. Those were the words of King, you guys. And we salute him today, the music link here with Gerald C. Rivers. And we just want to thank you for coming in and sharing it with us today. And we hope that we blessed you guys, Lady B here, the music link, Gerald C. Rivers. You guys look up all his handles. Instagram, Facebook Live. Go look him up, you guys. We thank you for tuning in. And you guys have a blessed day today.
Peace.